cybersecurity podcast.
Hey, thanks for listening to Hackwork. And today we do another live episode and a live show. And it's a pleasure to do this together with my super evil co-host, Tyler Cohen-Wood, today from Memphis.
It's great to be here. I'm really excited about this show. It's going to be really good.
Yes, and we want to talk about the Metaverse and the buzz behind the Metaverse. And we have two excellent guests. It's Cyril from London, United Kingdom. Hi.
Hi, everybody.
And Kevin, beautiful as always, from France. Hi.
The south of France is beautiful. That is very correct. Good afternoon or good evening, good night, whenever you're watching this. So, Metaverse, cool topic.
Yeah, it is. And I think the term Metaverse is a term, if I look in social media and what's going on in all the releases, to me, it looks like a term full of misunderstanding. So first of all, any one of you, can you explain what is the definition of Metaverse, like Facebook or Mark Zuckerberg has published it and announced it last year?
If I may, I suppose if you ask 50 people, including Mark Zuckerberg, to give you the definition of the Metaverse, you probably get 55 answers. Now, I suppose in fairness, you have to hand it to Facebook and Meta that they've kind of put a stake in the ground with kind of saying what they see it being. And that is a virtual world where you can play, work, socialize, and it's got a bunch of attributes, right? So, and this is my words, think if you've seen the movie Ready Player One, that kind of a world. And then if you go ask everybody else, they'll have kind of similar definitions, but they might be different if you're in an industrial type of use case, or is it a social thing, or is it our next generation of digital collaboration, and everything in between. And I personally don't know what the answer will be, but I am quite bullish about where we're headed. But it's kind of a perfect storm of a lot of different technologies. But like the reality is that we're so far away from some of these visions today, but we're doing bits step by step.
Okay.
That's a great definition. And you're right. I think everyone has kind of their own definition, their own interpretation, and their own, potential use cases for it. So I think it's good to point that out. I have quite a few of those, but we'll talk about those later.
Yes, I see. Everybody is mixing everything into the Metaverse. It's like NFTs. We need NFTs in the Metaverse.
We don't need NFTs at all.
In addition to what Kevin said, I think there is a keyword that is often associated with the Metaverse is immersive. It's an immersive experience. As I say, it's not only visual, but also with our sense, basically with kinetic sense. So the sound, so except the taste, I think we have more or less all the senses who are excited in a sense in the Metaverse, while so that's slightly more, that's one more at least than just on a regular 2D virtual world.
Okay, so if you agree, let's say the common sense is like from what Mark Zuckerberg has presented, that this is a VR experience at the beginning.
Facebook are certainly seem to be focused on it is a VR world. Mm-hmm. Many more are saying it's more what we now call mixed reality. So I'm in the real world, but I'm getting let's say a digital overlay through various technologies, so that I'm still in, they call it the Metaverse or a piece of it, but it's kind of merging both the real world and some sort of a digital overlay. But okay. And again, there's a debate going on. No, the Metaverse has to be VR, and no, it has to be a bit of this. And personally, I don't really care.
So the people out there, can I tell you a secret?
Yes.
I'm super early adopter. I wrote my diploma thesis on a virtual reality multi-user world, and this was in 1998. And
oh my gosh!
I was using VRML If you remember, this was a web standard for
going way back.
3D, exactly, and was building a multi-user world.
Did you invent the metaverse?
Obviously not, because the company who was inventing it was Silicon Graphics. If you remember, some people maybe remember this company. It's super expensive 3D computers. And they bought a company which was called Cosmoplayer. It was a Silicon Valley company. And they had the first plugin for the Netscape Navigator browser, where you can use 3D worlds and you can work in 3D worlds. This was 1998.
That was before Linden Labs and stuff as well.
Exactly. This was before Linden Labs. And now, if
This was before social media, obviously.
Exactly. Before we come into stories about VR visions in the web, to the people out there, this is nothing new. It was, I think, 1998, first people were thinking about it. There was a company, it was called Plexon. You can Google it, Plexon, heavily funded and went heavily into chapter protection, like into bankruptcy, like the startups are doing, early startups. Then we had Linden Labs, who remember that, Second Life.
It's still going.
It's still going, yeah, but it was
Wow.
a super buzz. And I remember that corporations were buying real estates.
I have an island in Second Life, and
Yes.
in the company I was in at the time, we did meetings in Second Life and
Yeah,
in the
great.
bar and whatever.
Then I think we had all this super experience of multi-user gaming, 3D, heavy 3D gamings, isn't it? In between, super. I mean, I was playing Left 4 Dead. Kevin is playing Fortnite. I think like he's a camper.
I am. That's a sniper for people who don't understand.
Yeah.
A bloody sniper. And now we have the metaverse.
You know,
So-
I see some use cases for it, but it's the way I visualize it. I sort of view it as the holodeck in Star Trek Next Generation, but there are definitely some good use cases for it. Like one, cybersecurity. If you were able to have a simulated network of your real network in a closed metaverse, you would be able to, you would know what devices you have, because you would have to audit it to actually put it into the metaverse. You would know the configurations, and it would be a very good usage for staging. You know, if you're putting in new productions, or also just trying to throw a tax at it to see what gets in and what doesn't. So I think that's cool. Healthcare, definitely there's a lot of potential, especially for, you know, digital twins, you know, being able to map out the entire genome, because then if someone is sick or they're ill, they don't necessarily have to go into the doctor. They can actually utilize this to test various medications or whatever needs to be done to have the best patient outcome. And then the third is global education. So education would be, you know, you could have education where it's a collaborative sort of global endeavor, where you may have an instructor in Germany and you're in maybe Memphis, Tennessee for one class. You know, you may have someone in Japan. So I think there's a lot of usage for it. And also collaborative exercise, kind of like Peloton, because I know for me, I have I do the step counts, and if my husband's doing it too, it becomes a competition, and it makes me want to do more steps. Thoughts?
I just want, okay, so in your view, we are going to spend our life with a device on our face. You think that education, we are going to learn languages, visit virtual places with
Well, no, we'll have like virtual contacts or something or implants that you can take in and out.
Yeah.
Neural networks like
So that's where I wanted
that's
to
common.
go.
But 10,
I
20
know.
years away, but that is coming.
I know. It's scary.
So that's where I wanted to go, because I think right now this is a massive limitation, is basically the need for a device. $300-400. I don't think the price is really the blocker. And you mentioned some use cases such as a digital twin, medical education, so they already use this device, but it's for a limited time, and it makes sense. There is a specific purpose. There is a why. There's a good reason why, because it's really an enhanced experience. It's really an immersive experience in this case. You know, when you are able to map a factory and really live inside the digital twin to verify that all the maintenance procedures can be processed in a specific amount of time, etc. That makes sense. Now, are we going to, among these use cases, really, what will be the ones that can be achieved with a limited device? Because I don't think the current device is fit for purpose, if I'm honest. I'm sick all the time. You know, I suffer from motion sickness every time I have one of these devices on this. And basically 5 minutes is the maximum amount of time I can have this on my face.
Well, the contacts or the implant will change that.
Transhumanism, right?
Yeah.
We're heading there.
Okay, let's go to transhumanism later.
Cyril, if I may, so I spend too much time in VR, in a world of my own, but I can spend about an hour.
Okay.
And then my eyes get tired.
Yeah, but an hour as well, super long.
It is, right? And you know, whether it's Beat Saber for exercise or trying out whatever, but if I may, and Cyril, I'd come back to your point on, I suppose I spend my time looking at the tech, right? So you've got the VR headsets, and to be quite honest, Oculus that Facebook bought, they've done a brilliant job with the Quest 2, right? It's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but from where they came from, wireless, whatever, it's no wires, whatever, incredible. HTC's Vive Pro is coming out. That's wireless for industrial. So you've got the VR thing and the advances in the type of screen and the pixel per inch and whatever. You know, it's like the usual. Every 2 months every week there's a new announcement. You've also got the whole thing. Say Microsoft HoloLens are doing the holographic AR thing, or you have the likes of RealWear, Kyber, others with kind of the screen that pops up and, you know, in your line of sight and whatever. So I agree with you. None of these are perfect, but, and I suppose if we look at the Ready Player One, it's all VR. But if you look at the Minority Report, you know, Tom Cruise picking all the stuff out of the air, and Tyler, to go on to your point, one of the things I see as a use case, whatever industry, there's too much information. And in the energy industry, where I spend most of my time, there's a feature right now where you have these massive control rooms, grids, refineries, whatever, and they're now changing the colors, because even though I'm sitting there for 6 hours looking at the screen waiting for something to change, it's hard to distinguish between yellow and red in a massive kind of a big screen. So imagine being able to kind of immersively with some holographic something or other. So to me, I think it's the next one of the reasons for the metaverse is it's a way for us to actually be able to cope with interacting with our future digital world.
Yes, but what I'm thinking about, like from the history, if I look at the history from VR worlds, and I mean the vision of a metaverse, aka cyberspace, because it was first described by William Gibson in his book, where the cyberspace had been, I mean, this is playing in the cyberspace, which is a virtual environment, which is, by the way, ruled and designed by a super rich billionaire who is the king of the cyberspace.
History repeating itself.
Yeah. But of course, this is the big vision. Then we had Snow Crash.
Neil Stephenson.
Neil Stephenson. Even super interesting, because this cyber world or this metaverse has a certain cybersecurity defect.
Oh, it's huge.
That's the story. Huge. That's the story about. I mean, the people are in there and it's crashing. It's the snow crash that's happening. So, I mean, we have the science fiction vision. Okay, I think like self-fulfilling prophecy, maybe. Tech people love the science fiction stuff, and we are ranked. We have transhumanism, to be honest. Yes, maybe we would get a plug-in API brain to machine device. I mean, we know that companies are working on that. Okay, But the question is always, where's the window? When is this window of opportunity? And for everybody who has tried devices, like you have the Oculus, if you tried the HoloLens, by the way, the HoloLens hype is, I think it's over the hype cycle, isn't it? I don't read.
What is the HoloLens?
From Microsoft, the AR glasses.
Okay.
We know the Google Glass hole story, by the way, which was like Google was burning the AR topic. We know somehow rumors that Apple is working on it, but it seems to be technical, more, let's say, challenging. So they are not bringing a product yet on the market, but let's see. So of course, so the industry seems to work on it, but always if I put some devices on my head, it's always limited. Like the HoloLens was, you can wear it an hour or 2 hours, then the battery lifetime is over, simply. Yeah.
So in fairness to Microsoft, the HoloLens hasn't gone away. Now, I am not working with Microsoft, not engaged with them, whatever. But I attended, they had a virtual HoloLens summit for North America last week. So they're quietly going around their business. And yeah, it's not, again, it's like every other thing on the market today. It's not perfect.
Yeah, and it's more industrial, isn't it?
It's very much aimed at a business industrial use cases. Yeah. And again, my opinion, primarily, let's say indoors or in office warehouse type buildings. You're not going to be wearing this climbing up an oil rig in the North Sea, right? That ain't going to happen. Yeah. Now they're on version 2. They're talking about new versions, but they've been quietly thinging away. But I suppose if I may come back, we kind of get, I think we sometimes get sucked into, the cool gadget, and it's a VR headset or an AR headset and whatever. Mm-hmm. And if I may, I'll kind of come back to, Cyril, you mentioned about immersive, right? And the way I kind of look at it is that, okay, so what's the metaverse? Well, you're going to have some world that you're going to be in. Now, whether you're fully in it with a VR world or it's the world you're in and it's a mixed reality kind of version, but you're in some sort of a world. You have a presence. You said immersive, right? So it feels as if I can look around or I can interact. It's not just looking at a 2D screen. There's persistence. If I leave the world and I come back 4 hours later, maybe things changed. Maybe because Mirko came in and was doing something in that world and it didn't pause. So there's persistence, and that has all sorts of state and whatever things. There's an economy in there. I know whether it's NFTs or tokens or whatever, but I can buy and sell things. And there's an experience. It's different. And I suppose the way I see it playing out right now is that whether or not you've got the glasses or the VR headset or the AR headset, a couple of things are happening in the background. And one of them is that we're now all using digital twins, medical, industrial, energy, you name it. I think the next generation of digital twins is what I call dynamic digital twins. They're going to take all the IoT information, and instead of looking at a static digital twin that this is what we designed, or this is what it looks like now because we did a LiDAR scar last week, it's actually in real time, it's a digital twin. Now, whether I'm looking at that on a 2D screen, or I can put on a headset and kind of look around in a 3D world, but that's happening anyway, because that's, whether it's industry 5.0 or whatever we want to call it, that's happening. And the other thing is I think we do need better ways to collaborate online. Like 2 years ago, we wouldn't have been doing Zoom calls as much as the general public as we were before. And that's been a revolution. But I think people want better ways to collaborate with a whiteboard or be spatially audio, so that rather than 4 boxes on the screen, you're kind of in a virtual meeting room. And when Mirko talks, I hear the voice from over here and I look at you and then I look over there. So I think it's evolving in different ways. And not everybody will have a VR headset, to Cyril, to your point, because the other thing is that if you wear glasses, a lot of these things they're hard to use, right? They're not built for people with glasses. So it's a tiny fraction, but I see a lot of things, kind of this perfect storm kind of going on. And I think a lot of the metaverse, most of us will be using it through a 2D monitor for the next couple of years, but the virtual world will be behind the covers. Anyway, that's my.
But isn't it what we are doing now? We are distributed over the globe, and we meet on a virtual world, which is called Zoom. So, isn't it the metaverse?
No.
Well, no, it's different. I mean, to Kevin's point, because I think such a good point is COVID has really brought on innovation. And my question back to you is, because I've been thinking about this a lot. Say tomorrow there was no COVID anymore. It was all gone. Do you think the metaverse would still continue on, or do you think that we would move on to different technologies? Because sometimes just because you can doesn't mean you should.
I think it's independent. I think it's not related. I think
Okay.
even without COVID, the metaverse will have anyway progressed. I think the angle from the metaverse is really gamers. I think it's really the core base. You know, this is where the first core audience will come. And at the same time, you have a digital twin extra that also sometimes require a virtual reality experience. So I think it would have happened even without COVID. Yeah.
I think it will happen without
Yeah,
COVID anyway,
good.
because
Okay.
let's say technical innovation is always driven by porn.
Thank
And
you.
gaming,
Yeah.
and gaming, actually. You are correct, at least it was, but gaming definitely helps propel it as well.
This is a point that I wanted to bring. So it's basically the adult industry and the gambling industry are really the two industries
Yeah.
that drive.
Sorry.
They drive basically. They are usually the first industries to invest in new technologies when there is a benefit for it.
Yeah, no video streaming without the adult industry.
Yeah.
If you look worldwide, I mean, now Netflix, to be honest, and they have jumped on it afterwards, but like the early adopters have been the adult industry.
The first industry to monetize the internet was the porn industry.
It was.
Adult entertainment industry, whatever you want to call it. I'm not going to go down the line of whatever VR and whatever, but I certainly, again, my personal opinion, without COVID, I think we were headed down the thing of better digital twins, dynamic digital twins. We need a better way to interact with all that data. So VR, AR was kind of happening. To your point, we talk about, okay, well, today, certainly in the industrial metaverse world, everybody's got their own digital twin platform. And it's kind of like the IoT platforms that was there 10 years ago. And the industry, in my opinion, will go through consolidation and whatever. But you have the likes of Microsoft with Mesh. You have NVIDIA Omniverse. You have Fortnite with their Epic with their engine under Fortnite, whatever. And like you say, well, how do you get 100 people into a VR meeting room without it crashing? Well, they can do that because they have 100 people playing in a game in real time all the time. And actually, when they do a concert, they have a couple of million of 100 people per room. They have 28 million people watching a virtual concert. So the scale, so gaming is driving a lot. They have the whole economy. I buy stuff in Fortnite. We were buying stuff in Second Life 15 years ago. So they're certainly driving that. But I think, again, in the industry I work in, COVID drove the remote collaboration aspect to a whole new level because you couldn't fly the guy or the girl to somewhere to fix something. So they had a guy with a smartphone showing them what they were looking at and a guy telling them over the phone to do this, do that, because they just couldn't. So the whole concept of remote collaboration is like, so we don't have to wait, even if COVID's gone in the morning, we don't have to wait 3 days for the person to come on a plane. So that's less downtime. And the CFO in that company is going, oh, what do you mean we don't have to send them to a nice hotel and a plane ticket? We can buy them a headset and a nice piece of software and it's cheaper. So I think it's accelerated things, but I think it would have happened. There's too many, it's like this perfect storm kind of thing, but we're so far away from this being mainstream yet, but we're getting there slowly but surely.
But what do you think? Like, I mean, Facebook Meta has announced to build the metaverse, and now we're seeing Microsoft has announced to acquire Blizzard. So
good move.
Yeah. So are they acquiring not only a gaming company, but as well the knowledge how to build stickiness, virtual multi-user experience?
Well, Blizzard built the Unreal Engine, right?
Yeah.
So that's one of their, so Microsoft.
I mean, Warcraft and all this super stickiness.
So, you know, when people say, what are the examples of metaverse and economy? Minecraft, Microsoft owned that.
Yeah.
They've just bought a company with the gaming and the engines underneath. So to be quite honest, if you can create World of Warcraft and the complexity and the real-time interactivity, how difficult is it to create a meeting room where when I wave at you, you see it and we can interact, and the physics, the gaming engine underneath is the tool, right? That's the platform.
And your boss is the evil orc.
Well, maybe I have a nicer, that could be tough in a business meeting, right? So I have a nicer avatar, but just think about it, right? It's infrastructure.
Yeah.
And the main
That's such a good point. That's a really good point. I'm sorry, I keep going back to Mirko's initial comment about the porn industry, because now I'm visualizing it, because I have a very vivid imagination. So thank you for that.
Yep.
Well, let's not get into full body haptic suits and things, right? That's a whole different world.
No, that was to prepare this webinar, so I researched, and in December there was an issue in the metaverse, is that a woman has been groped by someone basically in the metaverse. So there is a kind of safe mode when you are in the metaverse, where basically you block any visual, hearing, remote contact with people. So sexual harassment can also happen in the virtual world. So that's also something to take into consideration from how you are going to monitor this behavior, especially with, I would say, teenagers and young adults.
But we see that
is such
already managed in the gaming industry, because I mean,
they're getting better.
Yeah.
And I can go into Fortnite and I can do certain emotes that have taken on a meaning. So I'm being disrespectful to someone, you get reported. But Mirko, you guys, you know me, human nature hasn't changed. We give them a new tool, a new environment, and some humans will be better than others, and others will find ways of hacking it or distracting. But a simple example, I've been off playing in Horizon workrooms, and the ability to interact and get up and go to a whiteboard and draw on the whiteboard with someone else and whatever is very cool. It takes you a while to learn, right? You're not going to figure out in 5 minutes, but you get the thing that your avatar is standing too close to me.
Yeah,
because when I turn around, you're there.
Right there.
So the etiquette of how do you behave in a virtual meeting room? So if I'm not a nice guy in the real world, I can go up and kind of hassle someone in a meeting room because I'm standing too close to them. My avatar is. Now, is that just me not knowing, or am I doing that on purpose? So there, that whole, again, the human nature aspect of that, that has to be gamed out, but it's ripe for cybersecurity issues, whatever. Humans will be humans, right? Some will do good, some will do really bad.
So we are going to have HR who are going to share some policy, some VR meeting etiquette.
I honestly believe there will be certain guidelines.
There's going to have to be. I mean, both Kevin, both your point and Cyril, your point. I mean, I had never even thought about that. That it could be, it could put children at risk. It could, there could be sexual harassment, and the etiquette thing. I had never even considered that. That is so brilliant, both of you. Wow.
But if I may, it's like when we all started doing Zoom and Teams and blah, blah, blah. There's kind of an etiquette now on how you behave on Zoom calls. And for people that never used video conferencing 2 years ago, they had to learn that. And do I turn off my microphone and don't cut across someone and raise my hand instead of shouting and whatever. So the whole VR world is you're writing on the whiteboard and I come up and scribble over it or something. It's like, well, if I did that in the real world, that would be cool. So I could do that in the virtual world, and we're in a business meeting, and then what do people think, right? So and if I may, there's Glue, Arthur. Sometimes people think that, oh, the only way I can do this is I have to, no disrespect to Facebook, but I have to have a Facebook account. I have to use the Facebook apps. You don't. You can use other different platforms. There's different apps: Arthur, Glue, Engage, Immersed, different meeting tools. Most of the people can be on a 2D Zoom call, and they just see the three of us doing whiteboarding with our avatars. So there's a bunch of different applications out there, but the etiquette thing, I think, is something I was in a room and someone said to me, "You're standing too close to me," and I'm like, duh, wow, okay, I hadn't even dawned on me.
And maybe I remember, in every game we have the super cheater. People who find cheats, they're trading cheats. Think about meeting room cheats. I don't know what it can be, but however,
I'm sure we'll find them.
Yes.
But I'll tell you one thing that struck me. Okay, I'm in the VR, and you think spatial audio.
Yeah.
So when someone on my left speaks, and I look at you, and it's a very different. It's a more real world dynamic. Now, granted, it's cartoon character and whatever, but at the same time, it's a more real world thing than, no disrespect, but looking at a square box with 4 heads.
Right.
So I think there's legs in some of this stuff, but it's going to take us years. And back to Cyril's point, you're still wearing something, and that's tedious.
So we need to wait for the Neuralink brain to machine connect.
I think before that, there will be a technology which is a holographic communication, and it's going. So the last information I have about it, it's for 2028, 2030. So it will be linked to basically the 6G deployment in terms of capacity and bandwidth, and that's going to open a new world, really, because
What is the idea in behind, or the technical way?
Basically, it will be your computer and your avatar, and you will visualize. You will have hologram. You will be with holograms, basically.
So my camera feed, Mirko, is like, I have, the way on the Xbox you've got the whole VR and the detectors, and with Oculus and that's about ours. So it detects you spatially, and as Cyril says, as I'm talking to you, it's mapping it's basically just taking a live video stream, but digitalizing it into a hologram, and what you're seeing in the desk or standing in your room is a beamed projection of me. You can walk through me and whatever, but it's a holographic communication that could change the world completely, and maybe
Absolutely.
That's the metaverse, right?
You got me thinking. So if there's a complex surgery being performed, you could have a surgeon in another country that has done this standing there with the other surgeons working on the patient.
It just adds to me, I think it just adds another level of immersiveness, Cyril, as you mentioned. It's not that I can touch and feel them, or they're going to pick up a scalpel and start cutting someone, but I do think we want more human ways and more spatial audio, holograms. And now again, some of this is people are listening to us will go, great, we come back in 10 years. Some of it will be 10 years, but as I say, just little things. The amount of people using heads-up AR in industry now to break fix things because they can't fly someone somewhere, that it's starting, right? And bit by bit, and digital twins. And now, as to, is it ripe for hackers? We just increased the footprint, more devices, more software, more platforms.
Surface, it's perfect. Yes, there are one things, of course. Hackers are always a threat. This will happen, so we'll get a snow crash for sure. And the second thing which makes me a little bit worrying is about that. When I've started working with VR in the late 90s, it was open source. Now we are talking about platform economy. So Meta is a Facebook platform. So Facebook is defining the rules, who can enter, who can access it, what is the, let's say, the flow of economy in the platform. It's a single company who wants to establish the ecosystem there in the platform. And this is a little bit, let's say, worrying me, because I mean, this is not an open ecosystem as the internet was built.
Yeah. And as usual, you know, Europe is behind. We don't have any leadership again in this area, dominated by US players. Just like, I think we will have to pass again for this generation.
There will be a Chinese metaverse. There will be an American metaverse.
Yeah. But we can come back and have a repeat of this in 10 or 15 years time to see where we will be. I don't see one metaverse. That's my own personal thing.
I don't either.
And right now in the industrial world, I can put all my stuff into NVIDIA's Omniverse. Got nothing to do with Facebook. I can take the likes of Siemens with their software platforms, ABB, Aviva, you know, pick a Schneider Electric, whatever. They all have digital twin, virtual world type platforms. I think then you take the NVIDIA underneath, you take Microsoft with Mesh and the companies they've bought, you take Epic, you take whatever so suddenly you end up with the kind of the Google, the Amazon, the Apple hosting platforms for building platforms, put my virtual world in, and I use different devices, and how I log in might be through Microsoft account. You know, a lot of people, some companies today won't use Zoom. In the world I live in, if you tell someone you need a Facebook account to get into your digital twin of your oil refinery, you know, that's going to be a short conversation. So no disrespect to Facebook, but that's just what it is. So I honestly don't think it's a fear that the metaverse will be owned by Microsoft. I'll tell you what is interesting, and again, this is my personal opinion. A lot of people in the industry world don't talk about the metaverse because it's too closely branded by Facebook. Meta. They did a good job, but I think there's a lot of people talking about metaverse, but they won't use the word because they're going, no, that's not a good word.
We could just call it the M-verse.
They're calling it the amount of people that have new versions of digital twins, and they're calling it something else, an omniverse and whatever. I think we'll end up with word soup, but we always do.
I don't want to start this conversation because I think we should have you guys come back to take on the second part of the topic. How the heck do you secure this?
That's your problem, not mine. I just evangelize things. Hey, Ruth. God, I have no idea.
Yeah. It's kind of mind-boggling, because I'm assuming that the method of payment when you purchase things within the metaverse, omniverse, whatever verse you're using is crypto, is cryptocurrency.
Yeah, but there's an interesting story today. I mean, if you have read, not today, but if you have read, like, if Meta is, let's say, the maker of the metaverse, and crypto will be in there, it will be not Facebook's former Libra, because
it's gone.
It's gone.
It's gone. It's going to be something else.
It will be something else.
Bitcoin, whatever.
But obviously, it seems like that they are, let's say, good in building technologies, social technologies, but they have failed on convincing, let's say, the financial industry and the authorities that they are a good economic financial player, let's say it in that way. And if you want to be super successful in terms not only a technology platform, but as well as an economical platform, you need both. You need the financial trust, and you need the trusted technology.
And that's such a good point. I mean, how does GDPR apply to this? How does HIPAA apply to this?
Sorry, there's no
California privacy, Virginia's new act, Wisconsin. I don't know what we have here in Memphis, but I'm sure there's something.
And Tyler, I'm going to scare you, because the metaverse is going also the place where we are going to live with our dead. That's to say, you are going to have companies who are going to create avatar of dead people using videos, information, whatever, basically information they can retrieve, and basically, thanks to AI, recreate this person with specific tone of voice, mimicking physical movements. And that's scaring because, as you mentioned, privacy. So the dead basically will know a lot about you by definition.
Interesting.
So how do you lock this information into, I don't know how it's a dead avatar, I don't know how to call them, but that's also going to pose some troubles.
I was chatting with a couple of folks before Christmas, and they were on about the fact that, is this a step towards immortality? Maybe I don't, maybe I will, God forbid I do die, but maybe I don't want to be dead and I want to live on in the game. And I do want to go chat with my avatar because the AI and that lives on, and Mirko can come for a drink with me in some island somewhere.
Yeah, that's cool. It's the deep fake Mirko's drinking.
Well, can you imagine I'm still alive and my avatar turns up and starts saying something or doing something in some industry conference, and I'm like, I wasn't even there, and they said, well, your avatar was there and it did all this. So deep fake on steroids. Oh yeah, look, human nature hasn't changed, right? Some people will find ways of messing with this that we'll be like, oh man, that's bad.
Wow.
But
usually I'm the one that scares people, but
no.
But Mirko, you've seen how many Internet of Things, social media, whatever, like cybersecurity hasn't gone away, and it's always been there, and it just evolves, right? You got to deal with it.
Exactly. It's, to me, like, I mean, we have to learn and to deal that this world is vulnerable. The digital world is vulnerable. Let's say it in that way. We have learned it in the real world as well. I mean, nobody of us is just crossing the street normally without watching that a car is arriving. You can do that. To the people out there, you can try it, people, you can do that, but obviously it's not a good idea. So I think we have learned for the real world that it's vulnerable, and we are currently learning with less and more pain that the digital world is super vulnerable, and we will learn with less and more pain that the metaverse, or whatever we call it, will be super vulnerable as well. And as long we don't have direct brain to machine interfaces, it's maybe not hurting us in a direct way, but it seems to be that we are heading into that direction.
I assume a neural link could be hacked, and that opens up
and anything
whole can of worms.
Yeah, but I think by the time that we get to that point, we'll have better cybersecurity. I hope. I don't know. You know, the death thing is very interesting because I'm thinking about it. So people have roughly 10 to 15,000 words that they use, and they have a manner of speaking. They have a manner of typing. They have a certain way of thinking, and that could very easily be mapped into creating a person that
your
is
mannerisms
no longer here. And I'm not sure that's a good idea, unless you're mapping a super genius brain like Mirko's, you know?
No, I'm just thinking about, like, I mean, everybody knows the discussion with the wife and the husband, and sometimes it's not very pleasant. It would be super comfortable to send your digital twin to that discussion and just have a look on the results. Maybe the results are not as you expected, but I mean,
what if people like the digital you better than the you?
That's called Tinder, no?
Yeah. How do you call it? Super transhumanism.
Oh, I like that.
What do you mean? Because obviously you will say the same thing. You will think this. Maybe there is a bit of shyness away. Maybe the screen makes you can feel safe behind a the screen, so your digital you is more open. But I think that happens in real life anyway.
It's,
you know.
yeah, that's such a good point, Cyril. You know, people like I've seen people driving and they get road rage and they get angry and they'll flip someone off because they're protected by the car. They feel this sense of protection. But if those same two people were walking down the street and one person kind of bumped into the other, they would never flip them off. They would say, "Excuse me, sorry," or would just go on their way. So I think that's a really important point to bring up, because I think that will help kind of define some of the personalities that people create. And it may be slightly different from their real personality.
True, but I suppose if I'm pessimistic, if you look at the way people behave anonymously on social media and say things they would never say to a person in the real world,
right.
and you see that, you can now go into multiple virtual open rooms and pick a platform out there. And I can turn on my mic and I have some avatar and my name is, I don't know, whatever, Mirko. And I can walk up to you and say anything I want. And can you track me back?
No, you can't, because I have enough
platform.
money for the super cheat. And if you piss me,
my home will go dark.
Yeah, exactly. I have to super cheat. So no, of course. I mean, there will be new rules.
They'll have to be. And
Yeah.
and people will find ways around them and create mischief. And some of that mischief will be really bad. But back to human nature, right? We haven't learned since we crawled out of the trees.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, I think this was a good point. So let us summarize. We hopefully have a little bit defined what the metaverse is and not, and we had a brilliant outlook towards what it can be. And I'm really looking forward to have this conversation in 30 years when we're all lying in our water tanks connected with
Our digital twins, they have in the conversation.
Exactly. We don't have to do it. Our digital twins will.
So by that, and I hope as well for the people out there, you enjoyed our conversation. Thanks for watching us. Thanks for the people in the podcast for listening us. It was really a pleasure. Send us comments, follow us, follow Kevin, Cyril, Tyler, me maybe. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Follow us at hackwork.io